In this video, we address the question, should you claim Social Security early and invest it, or just let it grow? Coming up next on Holy Schmidt.
Holy Schmidt!
Should you claim Social Security early and invest it? This is the question that has occupied the space of a lot of videos on social media and hundreds of articles on the internet. The Pro Invest group says that by claiming early, you can build a nest egg, and the returns on those investments will generate more cash flow than if you just let your Social Security grow on its own. The Pro Wait group says that those returns aren't guaranteed, and Social Security increases are on schedule, plus you get the cost of living adjustment. And because of that, even though you get fewer years, it is more compelling to wait and claim Social Security later. This video is going to get crystal clear about both options, and in the process, help you decide which option might be best for your specific situation. All right, let's jump right into it. Gang, Medicare can be really confusing. Talk to anybody who's 65 years old or older, and they'll confirm this. Even with hours of research, people often end up on the wrong plan for their specific needs, costing them thousands of dollars a year. On this channel, we partner with 3 affiliate relationships. One is our trusted partner, Chapter. Chapter is the only national Medicare advisor that looks at and recommends all plans nationwide, saving their clients an average of $1,100 per year. The important thing is that they're easy to work with and they won't push you into a plan that doesn't fit your needs. And of course, they're completely free. If this is of interest to you, give them a call at 440-703-1224 to see if they can help you with your Medicare questions. Let me begin with the way the Pro Invest option is presented. That option is all about maximizing the total dollars you have throughout your lifetime. It usually involves an assumption about risk, about returns, and uses longevity as the fulcrum to help decide which point in the schedule is best for you. Some people present the data assuming that there's tax on your Social Security, but for the most part, most of the assumptions out there don't assume that your Social Security gets taxed when you draw it. Now here's a presentation that's usually used, some form of this presentation. Let's take 2 Social Security payments, one at age 62, invested at a 6% return and receiving a 2.6% cost of living adjustment. Why 2.6%? Over the last 25 years, the average has been 2.6%. The other is invested at full retirement age. Let's assume that's age 67. We'll assume the payment, as of today anyway, at full retirement age is $2,079.32, which means that the payment at age 62 is 70% or $1,455.12 a month. This corresponds to $24,951.84 per year and $17,461.44 per year, respectively. By the way, it doesn't really matter what the size of the payment is because the age 62 payment will always be 70% of the full retirement age payment, assuming that the retiree reaches full retirement age at age 67. Now, where did I get these numbers? These are the numbers of someone who's had an average income of $50,000 per year over the last 35 years, after adjusting for inflation. In other words, in today's dollars. And for those of you who don't know, the way your Social Security payment is determined is that the SSA will take your historical earnings and index them into today's dollars, and they'll take your best 35 years, add all of those together, and they will divide that by 420 months, and that's called your average index monthly earnings. You don't need to know how to do the calculation. You just need to know that there is a formula out there that gets you to a number. Now, the numbers I gave you are the actual numbers for someone who turns 62 in 2026, and the projected numbers of someone who turns 67 in 2031. What does projected mean? Projected means that it is the best guess as of today, but it does not include future cost of living adjustments because no one knows what those are going to be. If you made an assumption of 2.6%, you might be right if the future looks like the past, but the SSA isn't going to give you that assumption. It's important to note that claimed and deferred Social Security payments get the benefit of future cost of living adjustments. The difference is that unclaimed Social Security gets the future COLA adjustments plus the schedule increases that we just talked about. So you can see here that assuming the same 2.6% return at age 67, the annual amount is $28,368.70. not $24,951.84. But if you look at the schedule and you see age 62 data and age 67 data, it's pretty clear that if you claim it at 62 and invest at 6%, that's going to outperform claiming at age 67. The crossover point is age 88. And age 88 is many years beyond the life expectancy of a 62-year-old when they're making this decision. So why would anybody not claim early and invest? The reason is because there are a few things that are not captured in this model, and these are game changers. The first is income tax. The models don't assume you pay tax on your Social Security payment, and they also don't assume that you pay tax on your investments as they grow. This is important because you don't pay taxes on your Social Security payment if you wait until full retirement age or later, because you aren't receiving anything yet. So the size continues to grow and you don't pay taxes on that growth. While no taxes are the case for a lot of people, it's not the case for everybody. And ironically, the lower the return, the more likely you're going to be paying taxes on it. Why is that? Because if you invest in equities and they grow, they typically have a higher average growth rate versus fixed income. Fixed income is interest that you receive periodically over the life of the investment, and most interest income is taxable. So if you're receiving a 6% return and the S&P averaged, say, 12% over the last 50 years or so, a significant portion of that return is going to be interest income. Usually somebody comes in here and says, well, what about municipal bond interest? Well, muni bond interest typically is between 3 and 4%, certainly not anywhere near that 6% hurdle. And frankly, you have to have a very specific financial situation to have muni bonds in your portfolio. The second point is that this schedule assumes that if you're working, you thread the needle on the earnings limit. What does that mean? Well, the earnings limit is a dollar amount. If you earn more than this dollar amount, you have to give part of your Social Security back to the SSA. Assuming that this isn't the year that you reach full retirement age, so assuming you're 62, 63, 64, etc., you have to give $2 back for every dollar in excess of the earnings limit. What's the earnings limit? $24,480. Once you reach full retirement age, you get it back in the form of a higher payment, but that sort of defeats the purpose of claiming early and investing it. If this is the year that you reach full retirement age, but you haven't reached full retirement age yet, the limit is $65,160. For every $3 that you earn over that limit, you have to give $1 back to the SSA. So for most people, if you're working, the earnings limit is going to scramble this analysis unless you're working part-time. And if you're not working and you're just living on investments or, say, a pension, the analysis assumes that you don't touch the new investments that you're putting into your investments. Otherwise, the math just doesn't work. It's been my experience, by the way, that most people do improve their lifestyle when they have additional cash flow. Whether they spend it all or not, that's a subject for a different video. But if you went out and you bought a new car and you have a $500 a month car payment, well, that sort of defeats the purpose. Also, if by claiming early and investing, you decide to retire early, the math might not work. Why? Because you would have worked longer and your current investments would have continued to grow and your Social Security payment would have continued to grow. So anytime you access your cash flow early and you would have waited, this strategy is less likely to work for you. And by the way, this isn't a statement about retiring early versus late. If you've arranged your life to retire early, I applaud you. There are a lot of people out there who've spent a lot of time during their working years to make sure that they were able to get out early. And that's a really good thing. This is more about people who haven't or couldn't arrange their lives to retire early, but by taking Social Security, they do in fact retire early. Had they not taken Social Security, they would have continued to work for many more years, or at least several more years. Now, if you would have retired early in either situation, then this might work for you, but there's one final element that you need to be keenly aware of. The model assumes no or low risk in your investment. And just because you have a 6% return doesn't mean that you have no risk. Let me explain. Many of you remember 2008, the global financial crisis. Let's say that you retired in 2003 and you took those funds and you invested them. And 2008 came around and you were ready to start drawing down on those investments. The global financial crisis hit and your portfolio would have dropped significantly. At least most people's portfolio dropped significantly. And the S&P 500 dropped and it didn't get back to the same place that it started at for 5 years. So for 5 years, if you were selling investments to live your life, you would have been selling at a discount. Something similar happened in 2021. Let's say that you made the decision to retire in 2016 and you invested your money from 2016 to 2021. In 2021, late 2021, 2022, the markets dropped precipitously. This was the time that Russia invaded the Ukraine. Inflation was raging, and so you saw a big drop in both the equity market and in the fixed income market. If you had invested in an equity index like the S&P 500 index, it would have taken a few years to recover. You would have had to sell some of your investments at a loss. If you had been invested in a long-term government bond index, well, those long-term government bond indexes, many of them still haven't recovered. So we covered the math, but life is rarely about straight math, and there's also a non-monetary aspect to this decision. One is, what if you want to protect loved ones? The survivor benefit for both the spouse and the children is a really good benefit. And it's something that would be much smaller in many cases anyway if you claim early. Conversely, what if you had a life event that you were trying to plan for? What if you wanted to travel early? You wanted to claim early and travel. A lot of people do that. They take a smaller Social Security payment so that they can enjoy the early years of retirement while they still have energy. Or what if you wanted to claim late because you're worried about what your long-term care situation might look like in 20 or 25 years? Who knows? What if you don't know anything about investing? It just wasn't what you did, and you felt uncomfortable making commitments with your funds? Or what if you just need the money? Life's been hard, and the funds are there, they're available, and they can solve a problem. I will say, out of all of the list of things that people use their Social Security payment for, spending the money early because you have no other options, it is an option, but it's not the most powerful argument of the group. If you like this video, check out that video, the 5 big changes to Social Security in 2026. Also, don't forget to give our partner Chapter a call, 440-703-1224, if you have questions about Medicare. This is Jeff Schmidt, and I will see you in that video right there.